So, let's talk about a court case that really changed the game for what marriage means under Indian law. It's a fascinating story that kicks off with a wedding, but quickly dives into a secret diary, a legal fight that spans 2 continents, and a final judgment that was, honestly, way ahead of its time.
At the very center of all this are 2 people, Moina and Amardeep Singh Khosla. Their story starts out simply enough, with a wedding, but things unravel pretty fast, and it turns into a legal saga that would challenge the very idea of matrimonial law in India.
As you can see from this timeline, this wasn't a quick process. We're talking about a journey from their wedding in July '83 to the final court ruling in '86 that was anything but straightforward. It was filled with these deeply personal, difficult moments and some pretty significant legal hurdles. It took almost 3 years to get to the end of it.
Okay, so what was really going on here? What was happening behind closed doors that led Moina Khosla to take such a drastic step as seeking an annulment? Well, at first, the lack of any physical intimacy was kind of explained away. Amardeep told Moina, look, they were basically strangers, and it would just take some time to get to know each other. But, days turned into months, and then they moved to Canada together, and it became pretty obvious that time wasn't really the issue here.
And then everything changed. The truth came out when Moina found her husband's old diary. And there it was, in his own handwriting from 1980, detailing his homosexuality. That discovery, along with a bunch of homosexual literature she found, led to a confrontation. And he admitted it. He told her the truth. He was homosexual and just couldn't have a sexual relationship with her or with any woman for that matter.
So armed with this devastating, incredibly personal truth, Moina goes back to India to get the marriage annulled. But right out of the gate, bam, she hits a massive legal roadblock.
The very first court she went to, the district court in Delhi, basically threw her case out. The judge said that because her husband, Amardeep, was now living in Canada, an Indian court had no jurisdiction, no legal power really, to even hear the case.
So how on earth did the High Court get around this? Well, it all boiled down to this one really important legal idea, domicile. Now, this isn't just your mailing address. You should think of domicile as your legal home base. It's the one place the law considers your permanent home, no matter where you might be living at the moment. Okay, so legally speaking, there are 2 pieces to this domicile puzzle. First, you have to actually live in a place. That's the residence part. But second, and this is the absolute key, you have to have the intention to make that place your permanent home for good. You need both. Just living somewhere, even for a few years, isn't enough to change your legal domicile.
Now this is where it gets really clever. The High Court judge, Justice Mahinder Narain, completely dismantles this whole jurisdiction argument. And you know where he finds the key to unlock it? In a piece of paper from their wedding day. His logic was just brilliant. It all came down to that marriage certificate. See, on that official document, Amardeep himself had declared a permanent Delhi address. So the court said, that's it. That establishes his Indian domicile when they got married. The burden of proof was now on him to prove he had legally abandoned India. But he didn't offer any proof. No Canadian passport, no document showing he'd given up his Indian citizenship, nothing. And just like that, the Delhi High Court declared it had full jurisdiction.
All right, so with that first huge hurdle cleared, the court could finally get to the real heart of Moina's petition, the simple fact that their marriage had never, ever been consummated. Now this is super important. The court was working with a pretty new version of the Hindu Marriage Act, and the change was subtle, but it made all the difference. The old way was a real headache. You had to prove the person was impotent on the wedding day and stayed that way the whole time. But the new law, it was much smarter. It just said you have to prove the marriage wasn't consummated because of the other person's impotency. It totally shifted the focus from a permanent state to a direct cause. So, to use this new law, the court had to ask a fundamental question. What does impotency even mean, legally speaking? And their answer was, honestly, a total game changer.
They look back at a major Supreme Court case, which gave them this powerful definition. And here's the key. It says impotency can be a mental or physical condition that makes consummation a practical impossibility. That one little word, mental, opened up a whole new world of understanding.
And let's really focus on that phrase, practical impossibility. It's the whole ballgame. The law doesn't care if, in theory, consummation is possible in some other situation. The only thing that matters is whether it's practically impossible within this specific marriage.
So here's how the court put all the pieces together. First, it identified Amardeep's homosexuality as the psychological condition. Second,
It said this condition made him incapable of heterosexual intercourse, which led to the result, for this specific marriage, consummation was a practical impossibility. And there you have it. The legal standard for annulment was met fair and square.
So Moina Khosla got her annulment. Her marriage was officially over. But the story doesn't end there. Not by a long shot. The impact of this 1986 decision goes far, far beyond just her story.
I mean, just look at this legacy. First, psychological impotency. The court basically said, hey, this isn't just a physical thing. It can be a state of mind. Then there's relative impotency, the idea you could be incapable with one specific person. This was also a huge case for treating sexual orientation as a factual basis for annulment. And finally, it showed that personal stuff, like a diary, could be enough proof without needing a medical exam.
You know, what's truly incredible, especially when you remember this was 1986, is the court's tone. The judgment wasn't moralizing. It didn't pass judgment on Amardeep's homosexuality at all. It just treated his orientation as a fact, a condition that made consummating this particular heterosexual marriage practically impossible.
Ultimately, this case leaves us with this really profound question, one that courts are still trying to figure out today. Where exactly does the law draw the line between a partner who is simply unwilling to consummate a marriage and a partner who is truly incapable of doing so? That distinction is incredibly fine, and it remains right at the very heart of matrimonial law.